But I venture to say it was a lot longer than a week. But he looked and he prayed for him every day. You know that. And then he saw him coming. And he couldn't wait, and he ran to meet him because he was coming home. But the boy kept up what he thought he ought to do. And his son, verse 21, and the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight, and am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, Bring out the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his hand and his sandals on his feet, and bring the fatted calf here and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to be merry. Again, I can't imagine the emotion that they were feeling together. But when the son made this statement to him, the dad made a statement back by telling him, Go get the best robe I got and put on his back. Put a ring on his finger. Why did they do that? Because that ring was a insignia of his family. And everywhere that young man went, he wanted to know that he was his son. And he put shoes on his feet. But then he did something that was very important, apparently. He killed the fatted calf in celebration that his son that was dead, because in his mind he must have been, because he had left home and he had no way to know where he was at. He is alive, but most important, he has come home. Most important, he has come home. It's more important, the one that is lost, to be found than the 99 that is worthy, that is there. It's more important that you find the lost than to have what you've kept. The son has come home. I told you in the beginning that I thought the son had disrespected his father, but let's go to verse 25. Now his older son was in the field, and he came and drew near to the house, and he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, Your brother has come, and because he has received him safe and sound, your father has killed the fatted calf. But he was angry and would not go in. Therefore his father came out and pleaded with him. So he answered his father, Lo, these many years have I been serving you. I've never transgressed your commandment at any time, and yet you never gave me a young goat, that I might make merry with my friends. But as soon as this son of yours came, who has devoured your livelihood with harlots, and you killed the fatted calf for him. And he said to him, Son, you are always with me, and all that I have is yours. It is right that we should make merry and be glad, for your brother was dead and is alive again, and was lost and is found. I feel like now the father's been disrespected this second time. The older brother came home, and he could hear all this, and he had no earthly idea what was going on. He had been out working. And when he heard that his brother had come home, it is apparent to me that there had been some very hard feelings building up for a long time because of what he had done. And when the servant told him he'd killed the fatted calf, that may have been the straw that broke the camel's back, as my granddaddy used to say. And he wouldn't go in to greet his brother, and his father came out and tried to reason with him. Then some of the truth came out. Father, you've never given me a lamb to kill for my friends. But this guy that's devoured your living has come home, and you killed the fatted calf. while the Father was looking at the big picture. He was looking at where they had been and where he had come and gone, and now he's home. All the other brother could see is, I've never left and I've done everything you've asked. Why should I welcome him back home? And again, I say there's more rejoicing over one that comes home than the 99. There's more joy in heaven over the one we find than all the ones that are faithful. And it was extremely, extremely hard for this brother to understand that. And brethren, I suggest to you today, that's hard for us sometimes. That's hard for us to understand because we're thinking about po, pitiful me. Something else that I see that I feel is very hard for us as Christians today is we see ones that have lost their way and they're not part of the Lord's body anymore because of the way they've chosen to live and the way they've chosen to do things. And I'm suggesting to you today, brethren, we don't love their sin. We don't love the wrong that they've done, but we have to love them and try to bring them back home. It's vitally important that we wrap our arms around them and explain God will forgive you, but you have to be willing to ask. You've got to be willing to make that journey and start back home. We plant and we water so God can give the increase. Brethren, if we don't start planting and we don't start watering, we're not going to get any increase. We have to think about our kiddos that are starting off very young, and we have to start with them. But we can't forget the ones that are here that is lost. We've got to find them. And we've got to do our best to bring them back home. To bring them back home. It's been several years ago now. I was working 3 jobs and my kids were very, very young, and my wife was taking them to summer camp, and I couldn't go because I was working 3 jobs and I had to stay home and work. And I was excited they got to go to summer camp because I know what Bible camp meant to me as a kid, and I still go today at 60 years old and I enjoy it. But I got a little excited because I was coming home from work on a Saturday, and I came home and I got my shower and got cleaned up, and for the first time in 6 months, I was going to get to watch Animal Planet. I love to watch Animal Planet because when I got up, The Lion King was on. When I left for work, The Lion King was on. When I came home from work, The Lion King was on. When I went to bed, The Lion King was on, and I felt like I was the Lion King. I found myself singing them crazy songs going down the road. My kids loved The Lion King. My oldest could quote that 5 or 6 minute dialogue that was in front of that thing. I hadn't watched nobody catch a snake in 6 months. So I got kind of excited, and I love ice water and popcorn. And I had a little dog at the time, she's passed on now, that loved popcorn as much as me. So if I was going to eat my popcorn, I had to pop 2 bags, one for me and one for her. So I gathered everything that could ring and vibrate and put it beside my chair, had a big old glass of ice water and 2 bags of popcorn. And I turned on Animal Planet. And I was so disappointed because the first thing that I saw was the title, A Man That Loves His Job. Man, I ain't wanting to work. I don't want to see what a man loves his job. I want to watch somebody catch a snake or something. You know, that's what I ain't got to see in 6 months. I was about ready to flip it over to college football, and the TV thing came back on, and there was a field of weeds. I'm talking weeds now. They were tall. And I could tell somebody was in them. You know, you can tell when somebody runs through a cornfield, the corn's shaking, you know, and I could see the weeds shaking in this field. And it would stop, and it looked like they was holding a tag team in them weeds. I mean, they was just going crazy. And again, something would take off. Well, when I get nervous, I get hot, okay? So I'm beginning to get hot because I can't see what's in them weeds. My dog's barking because I've quit throwing popcorn. I can't reach over and get water because I'm nervous because I don't know what's in them weeds. And it seemed like an hour, but it was probably a minute till the weeds started getting slower and lower and lower and lower. And I could see a man running in these weeds. There's about waist high, and this man stopped and he bent over, and it looked like he was pulling a water hose. And he stood up with a king cobra by the neck. 490 degrees. You could have fried an egg on this big old head of mine. My dog is barking her head off. I ain't throwing popcorn. I'm trying to get her to hush because I'm afraid this man's going to get snake bit because she's barking. And I realized that now that she couldn't do that, but at the moment I was so caught up in what he was doing, I was scared to death. I couldn't drink water. I was so scared because I was afraid if I moved, he was going to get snake bit. But I'd watched enough Animal Planet to know that you don't catch a snake by the neck if they have one, but you pin his head down and catch him behind his head so he can't bite you. Well, let's get one thing clear. I ain't doing that, okay? But that's what they tell me, and I'm going to trust them with all I've got if that's what you have to do. But that man stood there, it seemed like forever, watching that snake eyeball to eyeball. And then he started bringing that snake toward him. 500, 750 degrees, my head is about to explode. And that guy brought that snake in and kissed him on the lips. I passed out. That was just more than I could bear. When the TV thing came back on, you know how they mess with the screen, but the TV screen narrowed into a circle. And there was that man that kissed that snake on the lips. And it was that guy whose voice I'd been hearing this whole time. I could tell because he was talking. Why do you do this? Oh, it's very simple. There ain't nothing about kissing a snake on the lips. It's simple. My great-great-grandfather caught snakes. My grandfather caught snakes. My father. Okay, it's a family business. I get that. We are heroes in our community because these snakes bite and kill workers that are in the fields, and they bite and kill animals and cost folks their livelihood. So when we remove them, we're heroes. He said, okay, you're a hero. But the question of the hour is, why did you kiss that snake on the lips? Ding, 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 ding. That was the question I wanted to answer. He said, oh, it's very simple. No, it's not very simple. He said, a snake has to know that he can trust you. My dog was 16 when she died, and I ain't never kissed her on the lips. I rubbed her on the ears and gave her treats and all that stuff. You know, she knew she could trust me. Now my mind is rewinding, thinking about what this guy was doing. He caught the snake, and he was standing there looking at it, and this thing on the back of that snake's neck was about this wide. And he started bringing that snake into him, and there was two things that I saw. He never moved his face. He looked straight at that snake. And he came in and he kissed him, and when he kissed him, the head went in. The snake collapsed in his hand. He picked it up, put it in a sack, tied a knot in the sack, and walked off with it. He said, a snake, when you do that, knows he can trust you. But if you ever look off, you're dead. Because he will bite you as soon as you look off because he knows you're going to hurt him. And we are so far out when we go to do this, there's no antivenom. So you won't make it back to where there are. You will die. Brethren, I told you that crazy story because I want you to think about something. When do we lose our souls or our family's souls? Isn't it when we look off? It's when we lose sight of that goal and we have to look at something else. We're like Ford Motor Company. We have a better idea and we think we can do things better than what God's plan is. And when we look off, we have just quit planting and we've just quit watering. And we lose our increase. It's vitally important, brethren, that we keep our eyes focused on the goal. It's vitally important today we give it all we got. Because as you know as well as me, in our society today, there's a lot of bad things going on. And society's saying there, please don't love them because my arms are wide open. And I'll be glad to accept any of you or your kids that you don't want to have. And I'll be glad to take them into my little red wagon. Maybe those here today that's never put on Christ in baptism. If not, why not? Maybe those here today that's lost sight of the goal. They're not following the plan that God set before us anymore because they're doing things that's more important to them and not what's important to God. But brethren, there may be people here today that's just hurting. There may be things in their lives that they're going through that we have no earthly idea about. They need somebody to pray with them and pray for them. If you have a need today, we ask you to please come as we stand together, please, and as we sing.
When we walk with the